Herzlich willkommen zum English Coach Podcast, präsentiert von trainingtree.de, die personalisierte Lösung im Bereich Erwachsenenbildung. Und jetzt dein Gastgeber, Ian Antonio Patterson.
Well, hello there, welcome. I am so happy to be finally producing this, the very first episode of the English Coach Podcast. It's season 1 of something fresh and exciting that hopes to add a splash of color and life to your learning experience. Hi, my name is Ian, your host and English coach. As a teacher, trainer, and coach, I offer what I like to call the personalized solution. Now, this is not really all about me, but if you're interested to see a little more about who I am and what I do, just head on over to trainingtree.de. Essentially, I'm doing this to serve my community of learners. The podcast hopes to accompany you in a meaningful way on your learning journey. It will help you to hold on to the things that you've learned and to achieve the fluency that you want. Today, I will tell you a little about what you can expect and where it's all coming from. Freely available spoken word media made with you in mind. Season 1 comprises about 16 episodes and will attempt to feature a more representative mix of what I like to call an inclusive international standard of English. Keyword, clarity. I will also be using German sometimes because this is the native language of most of my course participants. This rather mixed approach hopes to present mixed content, speaking to a diverse spectrum of interesting themes. Along with the usual grammar, vocabulary, tools and tips, and hopefully the occasional interview. This is all experimental, things are changing, and as a trainer, I also need to adjust to this still fresh and exciting democratization of the learning experience. So where did this all come from? Well, it was actually a guy called Timo, an acquaintance of mine, and very nice guy from Germany and past course participant, who actually asked me about 8 years ago, if my memory serves me correctly, if I'd given any thought to the idea of actually doing this for free. Well, to be perfectly honest, I didn't exactly laugh at him, but I didn't take him too seriously either. Now, in retrospect, that wasn't such a bad idea. The whole idea of, serving an active community of learners and giving something back. Another past course participant of mine, one Mr. Kim, an HR executive now over there in South Korea, once very generously said to me that I was one of the best language trainers he'd ever had. Now, as the story goes, unfortunately, I never got that in writing. He always encouraged me, however, not to be afraid of getting more of my personality into the lessons. Now, what was that? That was paid work and an example of a satisfied client giving me permission, so to speak, to like what I do. Many people still ask why, after having studied so many things, I decide to teach. Well, simply said, I like it. It's a feel-good kind of thing. It's a pure calling. And if there is anything at all that is in my blood, teaching, training, or coaching, as the case may be, is what it is. Both of my parents were teachers. They're not doing it anymore, but I certainly owe this talent to both of them in nothing less than a very big way. Another very good friend of mine from the Ukraine once heard me talking about the idea of doing a podcast. And she just went straight ahead without too many words and bought me a good microphone for my birthday. It's now August 2019, and it was some 4 months ago. Now, naturally, it takes more than just a microphone to put together a podcast. but I'll be more than grateful to her for this meaningful gesture. She also mentioned looking into the Patreon approach, which basically invites you to give content for free in the hope for tokens of appreciation. That is not a bad thing. It works for some and sits well with what I like to call this fresh and exciting democratization of the learning experience. Now, training, in my case, English training, is not exactly the most lucrative of career choices. It is called a calling for more reasons than one. One great good, as I said, is that it's a feel-good kind of thing. My learners benefit from authentic enthusiasm. Again, this is not all about me. However, from the more than few challenges that I've had to face to get to this point, both as a trainer following his calling and as an adult learner of a foreign language, I myself understand perfectly what some of my adult learners themselves are going through right now. Training, again in my case English training, is sometimes simply not seen as an essential service. Learning takes time, and all of us have only 24. That doesn't change, but priorities do, based of course on context. Case in point, another friend of mine from Germany who himself very recently strongly encouraged the idea of doing a podcast, first found the idea ridiculous when I mentioned to him a few years back that I would actually be willing to offer my skills online for free, again in the hope of donations. Now, let's be clear about one thing. That is not what I'm asking you for today. This first episode simply sets the stage. It offers insight for who's interested into where all of this is coming from. It is open to everyone, independent, and preserves its own freedom to unfold. It represents a second step towards fulfilling my promise to deliver lasting benefits to my course participants. As a participant who wishes to get the full didactic value from these episodes, I would invite you to check out the show notes and the full transcripts when available. English is not a phonetic language, which means for developing pronunciation, reading while listening at the same time would serve you best. Auf Deutsch, als Teilnehmer, der den vollen didaktischen Wert dieser Episoden erhalten möchte ich dich einladen, die Shownotizen und die vollständigen Transkripte mitzulesen, wenn verfügbar. Englisch ist keine phonetische Sprache, was bedeutet, dass für die Entwicklung der Aussprache das gleichzeitige Lesen und Hören am besten geeignet wäre. So all in way of saying, what exactly? I'm saying that you get to benefit here from what I call this fresh and exciting democratization of the learning experience by making your own choice of sources at no risk at all. You get an interesting, independent, accessible, and personalized format directly from a qualified, experienced, and specialized trainer. You get to benefit from some of the experience, methodologies, and insights into tips and tools that continue to help hundreds of real people with real names and real faces that I have personally worked with over the past 12 years. You get a fair amount of entertainment in the form of a podcast, spoken word media, which is essentially a show with benefits. You get the willingness and ability, on my part at least, to try out something new that might in fact fit better to your life. Some new and interesting tools, engagement with which might help to keep you new and interesting. You get diverse insight together with a whole palette of real-life, conducive interests, all in support of your long-term learning experience. And last but not least, the authentic enthusiasm of a real person who sees you as such, and as a participant, one who actually cares on a personal level about your learning progress. I'm doing something too. This is not just me saying sweet nothings for clicks, so to speak. While there is admittedly some entertainment value to be found in a show with benefits, as I put it, the educational value being offered to you will always be mentioned first. The goal that I've given myself here is not to always bore you with abstractions. The more inclusive international standard of English, as promised, means that in season 1 of the English Coach podcast, the lived experience features meaningful insight of guests and fluent users of the language from a delightful mix of 7 nations to start with, namely France, Germany, Russia, Switzerland, Sweden and Italy, and last but by no means least, my very own Jamaica. If after season 1 you still don't know what an inclusive international standard of English means, ask yourself where your clients, customers, or business partners work and live. Then ask yourself about the English they speak. Make an average of sorts to approach what an inclusive international standard of English would perhaps mean for you. It's neither about notions of perfection nor pretentiousness. Think progress and pragmatism. What gets the job done? This should be enough for who would let it. If after having done that, you still don't know, feel free to just ask me. What I'm doing here is actually putting my skin in the game by producing and publishing this entire first season of the English Coach podcast independently and all for you, and all still in support of my personal promise to not only offer the personalized solution, but also to deliver lasting benefits for my participants. This podcast initiative illustrates my commitment to doing that. Truth be told, I do not know how circumstances will allow me to continue. This is all experimental. Now you have a good idea of what is possible. Take from it whatever works for you. And when you have a bit of time, take a minute to let me know what you think. I honestly think reflection is good. So I'll ask myself the question again, all in way of saying, what exactly? I'm saying talk to people, converse with ideas, playfully experiment and call it that. Be ever mindful of your own learning goals. And if one approach is not working for you, change it. You do not need a trainer all the time. Do it yourself sometimes. Read a book. Whatever you think is right for you. That's also what this democratization of the learning experience is all about. Start today, and tomorrow you will have been someone who's already made significant strides along your own learning journey. It's that simple. Now, before I go, I'd like to give a resounding shout out to everyone who's helped me, everyone who was involved in the production of this first episode of the first season of the English Coach podcast. I may have published this on my own, but it would have been impossible without all the insight, feedback, critique, inspiration, motivation, moral support, and physical hands-on help that I got from all the people who helped. The list is long, and from time to time, I might actually make mention of some of the people specifically who continue to help with the production. Thank you very much. With a small win is always a good way to begin. Okay then, we've come to the end of this very first episode of the English Coach podcast. Feel free to check out the show notes of this episode at www.trainingtree.de/podcast. This format is not for everyone, but like it if you like it, and if you don't, lie to me. Just joking. But still, feel free to share it with a friend, post a rating, or better yet, write a comment. This will help it to help you as it is intended to do. Subscribe only if you feel like, so you know when there's a new episode available. I also need your feedback to know what works for you. It's easy. Again, just head on over to trainingtree.de/podcast where I show you exactly how to do that. Thanks for listening. Looking forward to hearing from you, and bye for now.